Hi, this is Christopher Smith from the American Cannabis Report on PCM TV. And today it's my real honor to talk to Andi Keller, who is the media director and also a budtender at Homegrown Apothecary in Portland, Oregon. And I want to start out by saying how I met Andi, as a matter of fact. I was visiting a friend in Portland, and I told him, I need you to take me to the very best dispensary in Portland, the very best dispensary in town, because I know there are tons of them. I know there's lots of opportunity. And I'm working out of Los Angeles, California, so I have a particular idea about what dispensaries are about and how they're designed and how the people are and that kind of thing. So I said, take me to the best place in Portland. And he brought me to Homegrown Apothecary and introduced me to Andi. And now I've got her on the show today. So Andi, hi.
Hi, how are you?
It's nice that here we are in COVID time. So I have to say, it's nice to see you for the very first time, even though we've known each other for a number of months now, but I've never seen your face because we had masks on when we first met.
Right.
So awfully nice to see you.
It's nice to see you.
And so this is just for the viewer's sake. So Andi's with Homegrown Apothecary in Portland, Oregon. And just really quickly, I'll remind you of how I met you in the first place. But I was in town with a friend in Portland with a friend. And because I have the American Cannabis Report, I said, listen, I really want to find out what's going on in Portland, the scene. Can you take me to the best dispensary in Portland? And I had no idea. That didn't mean anything. I didn't know. I just said, take me to what you think is the very best. Because this guy has been a cannabis guy for his whole life. And I figured if anybody knows, he'll know. And so he goes, I've got the perfect place for you. And he lived in Northwest. He lived north of the Pearl, or, above the Pearl, whatever. So he's all the way across town from me.
Yeah.
So we get in the car, we go bumbling across, we go across the bridge, we go all the way out to your place, to Homegrown Apothecary. And now here I am from LA, right? So LA, we've got MedMen, and it looks like an Apple store, and it's super sleek and super fancy. And we come to Homegrown Apothecary, which is a house. And it's painted like it's like a Swiss chalet kind of thing. It's painted on the side, and it's a Homegrown Apothecary with curly leaves and stuff. And I'm like, wow, this is Portland all the way, man. And we go into Homegrown Apothecary, and the first part of the house is all apothecary. It's all just natural treatments and remedies and leaves and powders and stuff like that. So rather than blather on a little bit, maybe just tell me a little bit about the way that the business is set up, and tell me we can start from the beginning, how it was created and how it got to be like it is, because it's an incredible, magical experience I never would have expected.
Why, thank you. We were founded in 2013, the end of 13, by Rhonda Shaheen. And she believes more than anything in health and wellness and organic health and wellness. So her fundamental, where she started was that all plants, sorry.
It's all right.
So we were founded by Rhonda with organic health and wellness in mind. So the front apothecary and the back dispensary have a certain synergy to them. They all are plants that offer us a medicinal value. So all herbs out front are sourced organically, wildly, as ethically as possible. And we hold our cannabis to the same standards. Our goal is to make sure that it's all soil grown, from farms that have sustainability goals in place and that they're working towards the future to include. That list is broad because there are so many different ways that you can support the earth. But our belief is in intentional living and intentional wellness, and supporting people that we know are also supporting us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the first part of the experience of walking into Homegrown Apothecary is literally like walking into a friend's house.
Yeah.
It is so inviting and so comfortable. There's furniture, there's couches and tables. It feels like you're walking into someone's home, and it just happens to have a bunch of jars around the outside of the room. And you do the sort of sign-in thing. And then again, this is back to my friend Jesse, who said specifically, I have to go see this particular dispensary and I have to talk to this particular person. That's Andi Keller. So all the way from LA. I got dragged all the way across here, and you're the person that I've said this is the most important person in Portland to see. So, haha. I know. Oh.
Well, I really appreciate that.
No, but so I met you again. We were COVID, so we were masked up and everything, and so it was all of that. But immediately, I got a completely different vibe and a completely different experience from walking into and meeting you and starting to hear what you had to say about the products that you had and the variety that you had and whatever. And what really captured me completely was how deeply you knew the people behind every single box or jar or bottle on the shelf. I mean, I said in my article about you, I said, I think they even know the name of the dog on the farm that grows and stuff. I mean, it was
A
that
couple
personal.
of them we do.
I see. I knew that. That's very funny. I made that up, but I had a feeling it was probably true. But so to me, what this meant was that you spend a lot of time building the relationship with the growers that provide you with the magic with the plant, right? So this is, and just so everyone understands, you've been involved with that apothecary for 8 years, 7 years?
I've been there for 5 years, but we've been open for 8.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Most of our staff has been there for over 4 years.
Yeah, what a big deal that is, right?
Yeah, it's huge. Our industry has a huge turnover rate, but we've all had a lot of time to take in our spare time to really get to know what's going on in the industry, get to know the people that we're working with. We've been invited to a lot of farms, and I'm really excited to be scheduling some more for our new staff that has come in this last year to start getting to know all of these people as well. But that a lot of it comes down to sourcing. Like, we want to know what's going on that farm. We want to know what you're putting on your plants, because you could say no pesticide, but that doesn't eliminate things that aren't considered pesticides, but are still harsh chemicals that really aren't good for your system. And pesticide for us is also something we choose not to use, because the word pesticide could also refer to ladybugs and praying mantises, because they remove pests from the garden. Right. And we're all for polyculture and permaculture and supporting biodiverse gardens. So making sure we know what's going on that farm creates that really great relationship. And the farms that we work with are really excited to be working with us, because we're holding those same standards and we're passing those values along to our customers. So that creates a really great relationship all around, a community. And that's what we're trying to create, is an educated cannabis community. And I think it's spreading.
Well, I'm the way you guys do it, I sure hope it is. Like you said the word sustainable early on. We like to work with farmers that do sustainable things, but
yeah,
I know sustainability very well, and what you do is up there compared to sustainability. Sustainability for so many is the bare minimum to pass the certification, so that they can check the box,
Yeah.
And it's not really authentic. It's not really purposeful. It's a requirement, and so therefore blah blah. But you do it a whole different way. You think about it a whole different way.
We do. We're trying to support the soil, because regenerating and rebuilding the earth is how we're going to rebuild our future, and rebuild our health, because American health is the lowest it's been in generations. So a lot of that can be traced back to straying away from clean farming techniques. So supporting our earth, again, is going to support us in so many more ways. Sustainability for us, it starts on the farm at the soil, and then it continues on to the packaging that people are bringing into us. A lot of people are packaging in ocean plastics, hemp plastics, soy inks, making things as compostable as possible. And then also we work with a group called P3. They bring us all of the joint tubes and things like that, that we have to give out. And they specifically take them back, medically wash what they can, melt down what they can, and make them into dupe tubes again and put them back out on the market, so that that's not an issue, because it's a really relatively large one in our industry. But if we can keep that plastic going and be continuously reusing it, that'll take a huge dent away from it.
Yeah, it's just, well, it's again, it's just remarkable. Just the simple request of take me to the best dispensary in Portland, unveiled or just released this incredible amount of passion and information from you, and just about what you do and how I mean, it's so clearly so deep in your, I don't know, your fiber or something. I mean, you go into you and I talked about budtenders, for example, about turnover in budtender land, and how I'll go into a different dispensary and the budtender sort of knows what's on sale that day, maybe, and he's kind of looked at the blackboard and he knows what's a good price, and he says, like, do you want an indica or a sativa? And he asks very generic kind of questions that shows that he doesn't really have much knowledge, really. He's just, I mean, it's almost like I worked at McDonald's yesterday, I worked at the dispensary today, tomorrow I'm going to be, driving, like they don't, that. They don't, a lot of times they don't care. It ends up giving you a bad experience.
And a lot of places is like, it's a minimum wage job, okay. Just like a lot of things. I mean, they make some tips on that, but it's also relatively discouraged, I've noticed, among dispensary staff, because there's people, if this budtender hasn't taken the time to do the research and do the education, them giving out that false information can become a liability for the dispensary. And when you're having a quick turnover rate with budtenders and you're not able to be consistently training them, it's easier to have them avoid those conversations. So we do have a lot of people that tell us that other places have sent them to us because they know that they can get the answers that they need. Right. And that comes down to us having staff that's been there for a really long time. Our two newest people are they've put in so much time. I've seen them working really hard to really get to know all of the terpenes and the cannabinoids and the intake methods and why you would choose an oil topical versus a lotion topical. And there's so many levels to it, but they're doing an amazing job taking that on. It's great.
Well, the budtender's the budtender just typically has a pretty hard job, actually, right? Because it's not like if you go into a sneaker store and you're like, I want to play basketball, and they go, okay, then we go over to this section, which is just basketball and shoes. There you go, right? Yeah. Nike or Adidas, okay, fine. It's, I mean, you know what I mean? A lot of those things are prepackaged or they're organized in such a way, it's pretty easy for them to help a customer. I just have to know how to work the shoe sizey thing. But in cannabis, sometimes you're going to get people who either they're recreational users, let's say, and they just want to relax and just get high. Okay, so that's one possible experience. Or you have someone who comes in and they have a physical ailment that they want to try to address. Well, now you're asking this one budtender, this guy wants to get high. Okay, well, how high? And this one has, and this one has a neuropathy in the foot or something. It's a really broad a breadth of information that they have to be. I'm trying to say being a budtender is hard.
It is.
And I think what you guys bring is, like you said, the experience and the caring that it takes to actually learn about the plant and how it matches up with people's needs. And
I think that, like you said before too, our shop is cute. It's like walking into a home. That to us is really important because we have a lot of uncomfortable conversations with people. So it's important for us to provide them with a really comfortable space in which to have them and to tell us the weird things that might be happening, because they're not fun to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about them, but we're there to help and we know a lot of stuff. So if they can feel that peace and that safety to be able to say, hey, this is what's going on, we're better able to do our jobs. And every person that's come through our store for the last few years, they've been our best resource along the way. they tell us what's been working for them. And we were able to pass that knowledge then on to other people.
You know, I mean, what a great blessing in a way it must be for you to work with cannabis rather than, let's say, in a pharmacy where somebody says, well, you know, my elbow hurts or whatever, and you give them the thing, but there's all these side effects. You know, so you give them the pill for one thing, but it causes 5 other things. And then then they come back and they need a pill for the second thing. And it causes the third thing. And they need another. None of that happens with cannabis, right? It's not a side effect.
The biggest risks are like anxiety, panic attacks. And that's about finding people the right strain. And that's about evaluating them when they first come in, seeing where they're at and starting them small and working them into where they need to be. But it's incredibly rewarding. And I think that we all feel that. And that's why we work so hard to keep that level of service up. Yeah.
You know, I've talked more a couple of times since I've been there. You mentioned, for example, that you're the media director.
I am.
But I remember you as a budtender, and I don't mean that to be diminishing at all. That's just how you and I met. You know, that's
I do both.
But you do both.
Yeah.
You do both.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just been fascinated by our conversation and how, on a very personal level, when I needed something in your shop, you were perfect. You were like an encyclopedia for information. Any question I had, you were like, well, I could give you about 7 answers for that. And here you are. I mean, let's
limit that down to where we want to actually be.
Right. And which we did, you know, we got to the point. But at the same time, so you're the media director. So tell me a little bit more about that aspect of what you do.
I handle the social media. So we mostly just have Instagram at this point.
Okay.
Facebook didn't like that we had the word apothecary in our title. You have to be a pharmacy to be able to use that word on Facebook. So we're not on Facebook anymore. We are on Instagram.
Facebook. So Facebook says you can't say apothecary unless you're actually something else?
Unless you're actually a pharmacy, because apothecary, for those of you who don't know, apothecary is an old word for, it could be a person, place, or a thing for herbal medicine. You could go to your apothecary to receive your apothecary from your apothecary. Okay.
You've been waiting to say that for a long time, I bet.
It's like buffalo. You know?
That's fantastic. Getting buffalo this conversation.
Yeah.
So Facebook's annoying. Annoying, as we all know. So thank you. Yeah. I mean, even I've spoken about this before, just even the lack of responsibility that they take for blocking cannabis, right? And they sort of say, we can't control it, and therefore we don't want the children to get a look at it, you know? But they could easily keep the children from looking at it because they have total control. So
there's levels of that, but I also understand to an extent, because they're not just in America, right? They're in every country in the world, and in those countries they have to be able to make sure that they're following those most strict laws.
Understood.
So
and
those
they
people might
right?
be of age. Yeah. So at the same, maybe they could do it geographically.
But Facebook has that control.
Facebook
can block certain countries anytime they want. We hear about it in politics all the time. Like we hear about it when they've blocked Facebook from Turkey, from whatever, some other country, when for some political reason or some other reason or lawsuit or something, they just turn the switch.
It's true.
They can do it.
Facebook wants to be there, though. The more places they are, the better. So, and perhaps Facebook could limit certain accounts, but what you have at the end of the day is them not being able to trust who's creating what account. When I was like 11 years old, I had created a BMG account and was ordering CDs online. And they thought I was 18, people lie about that kind of stuff online. So they're taking that extra precaution to make sure that the youth aren't exposed to it. So there's a level which I get it. there's a level at which I think it's crazy, and that it's going to have to grow with the times.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, here we are, Andy. Just last week, the Leafly jobs report came out. Cannabis has now created almost 500,000 jobs in America,
Right.
the fastest job creator of all industries. There are 3 times more cannabis employees than there are dentists in America. So it's time for, well, politicians, companies, media companies, time for all of them to catch up with the way that people really are right now.
It's true. And I think that it's starting to happen, and I think that, slowly federal legalization is going to help with a lot of this. But it's going to take some time. I think people are coming around, but not even all the states have legalized yet. Agreed.
I have a friend who's a very conservative person who's a cannabis advocate also, right? So you'd think that those two things don't match. And she said, actually, they match just fine. The division is not Republican versus Democrat, liberal versus conservative. It's not, that's not the division. The division is age.
It's generational, 100%.
It's generational. That's exactly what she said. That's perfect. Yeah.
It is. We had the reefer madness there for quite some time. There was actually multiple wars on drugs, and a lot of it based on race, which is a lot of why we as a woman minority-owned dispensary support other minority-owned dispensaries and other minority-owned farms and products. If we're underrepresented across the board, and we were part of the reason why all of this has happened. We were
for sure. Tell me about those, though. Actually, that's a great topic. Tell me about some of these farms, if you want to sort of highlight anybody. I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
Oh my goodness.
Please do. You know why? Because you're in Oregon, right? You're in a little state up in the corner. And what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is how many profoundly important movements come from Oregon, as a matter of fact. I mean, the whole green building sustainability move, I believe, really, even though it was born in, Washington with the U.S. Green Building Council and all of that sort of thing, but really Portland is the heart of it. Portland is the heartbeat of the whole thing. And in sustainability as well, I mean, or rather I think in healthy farming as well. I know I lived in Oregon for a while, as I mentioned, and that what always bothered me was, although I know it's really authentic, but the name of the agriculture entity there, Oregon Tilth.
Yes.
which I always just thought, that's never gonna go outside the border. No one's ever gonna pick that one up anyway. But they are so pure and mission driven, and their results are so profoundly important, what they're doing. So I would love to hear more about any particular farm that you'd like to talk. I'd really, honestly, all day long.
Oh my goodness. There are so many amazing farms that we work with. Green Source Gardens is one of our personal favorites. There are about 6 different organic certifications that you can get in Oregon, and they all have different names. Sun Plus Earth Certified is one. Dragonfly Earth Medicine Pure is another. There's a list of them. They have all of them.
They have all of them. This one farm does all of them. Oh my God. Okay, right.
And they are also a watershed conscious property. They're doing hugelkultur, which is where they have raised beds that are made out of compostable materials. So it's helping to reduce drainage. They're also doing, they've won the Emerald Cup in regenerative agriculture. Their goal is to rebuild the soil, and all of our farms are. East Fork Cultivars is doing a really great job. They grow a lot of our CBD flowers and CBD products in general. Let's see, Brother David's is doing a great job in that all 3 of them, I think, have all of the certifications. Meraki Gardens is great. They meditate with their flower. And then they have a shaman come in to bless the crops before they take it down. They're a woman-owned farm here in Portland. The other ones were family-owned, all of them. All of them are amazing. Honestly, I could go on for hours about our farms. They're absolutely fabulous. We just brought in a new brand called Verdant Leaf, and they grow medicinal mushrooms like lion's mane and chaga and reishi between their crops. Same with our farm that does our clones. He has a mycelial network growing through his whole garden mushrooms. Paragon Farms does that. They're all just absolutely fabulous. It's just amazing.
Well, see, and this is the kind of thing that you were able to express to me just on that simple little day that I, was brought into your shop by Jesse Barney, was just the depth of your knowledge, which to me, one of the things I liked about it, it wasn't really sort of it was kind of a joy. You just have this thrill and this excitement when look at your face right now. I get
excited.
I know it. No, that's the beautiful thing. That's why I was so drawn to you and to being in that shop and to having that experience.
Oh, good. I'm glad, because it's exciting. What we're doing is awesome. People come back and they tell us what a difference we're making, and they drive across the state to find us. And that says so much about the success that we're doing. It feels great to be able to make a difference for people.
Well, I remember buying a bunch of things from you that day. One of the things was a sort of a tincture. This is a little bit of a technical question, but you answered it already. So, it's not a big deal, but we talked about FICO, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about the difference between FICO versus broad spectrum versus full spectrum, just as an example. So you can just show off a minute here, talk and show your mad skills. But so I had heard about, broad spectrum, people call it CBD, but of course it's really, hopefully it's a full cannabis extract. Hopefully, you're not just getting a CBD isolate. Really, it's a funny, misnomer kind of a problem. But we have broad spectrum, we have full spectrum, and I thought full spectrum was the real deal. And you're like, no, not really.
Not really.
Right.
Full spectrum is a buzzword at this point. It has no legal definition anywhere. So companies are able to define it as they like and put it onto their packaging. So the words that we look for are full extract cannabis oil. It's FECO, FICO, for those of you. And that means that it was the full flower. It has all of the cannabinoids, all of the terpenes. That's what we're looking for when people are saying full spectrum. What they're really looking for is a FICO product. Broad spectrums tend to be a bunch of different isolates combined together, but not necessarily all of the plant.
Okay.
And isolate is when you've separated just CBD or just THC away from all of the other cannabinoids and terpenes. You see that a lot with CBD pretty much anywhere. That's the stuff that's in the grocery stores, farmers markets, gas stations. It's a lot more expensive product because of all the work that they do to actually separate the CBD away from the THC. And every research study that we're seeing out there is showing that it has less success when it doesn't have those trace amounts of THC in there. They're calling it the entourage effect, if anyone would like to look that up. But essentially having the sum of the parts equal a greater whole, and you need the whole plant there to be able to get the full medicine out of there. So the isolates are great for people who might have drug testing available coming up, or are super sensitive in some way. But overall, if you have the opportunity to take advantage of a full plant extract, then you should be doing that. That can still be a hemp thing, but it can still be trace amounts of THC. The level for it to be hemp is, I believe it's less than 0.03%, and then it's a hemp product.
0.3, yeah.
Thank you. So it's very, very low, and we're talking like no amount of psychoactivity for most people.
Not for I don't believe for anyone. I honestly
Anyone,
don't
I
believe for
have to
anyone.
be really careful with my
Of course,
language as a
no,
budtender,
yeah.
because I
So
have so many liabilities. You can do whatever, you
I'm
can
the
say what you want.
I'm the journalist. I'm the
Yeah.
journalist, and I don't have a dispensary behind me to worry about. But everything I've read and all the research I've done for now the past 7 years,
Yeah.
everything I've read was that the 0.3 number, 0.3% THC in a extract was a random number. Really, it actually has.
Yeah.
It never had any scientific meaning whatsoever. It never meant anything. It wasn't tested against anything. It wasn't proven to be greater or less than. Some scientist at some point said 0.3, just kind of like that. And that became codified into the regulations around the world, 0.3. And I think the Europeans are now at 1%. There's push in the United States Congress to go to 1%, because what ends up happening is 0.3% is so low and so hard to hit that a lot of what happens is they claim the crop is hot. It has too much THC. And then the problem is, and you and I would say, well, all right, what are you going to do with the crop?
Mm-hmm.
You and I would say, okay, well, we got to think of what to do. All right, so let's grind it, let's put it back in the soil, let's compost it. And no, the government says, no, it must be destroyed.
It has to be destroyed. Oh my gosh,
like what?
It breaks my heart.
It has to be destroyed, right? So all of the soil nutrients that have gone in the plant, all the water that's been used in the plant, all of the resources that have gone, all the labor, all of it needs to be burned in a fire and create more air pollution, by the way. So, I mean, this is the mentality, right? It needs to be destroyed. This is the anti-cannabis, reefer madness stuff. It needs to be destroyed.
It's still there.
It's awful. It is awful. Hey, by the way, I wanted to ask you something. I just read something this morning that I thought was pretty awful, even though I love Oregon, which is that they're shutting down new licenses in Oregon. Did you read that?
For dispensaries or farms?
Everyone. All licensing is halted, right, as of maybe January 1st.
It's been Oregon. On and off, I feel like, for the last few years, to be honest.
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
But honestly, I don't know if that's a terribly bad thing. I think we over-licensed, personally.
Agreed. I think that's obvious, isn't it? Yeah. Too many farms. Yeah.
Too many farms, too many dispensaries. We are so dispensary saturated. It's insane. Really? And farm saturated. And what happened was then it pushed out a lot of the smaller growers who couldn't match the bulk rates that the commercial growers were doing. So we ended up with an industry that doesn't have a lot of small business representation, which is why what we're doing is so important to us.
So important. It's so critical what you're doing in so many different ways. The small business aspect, just if we look at it like from an economic lens, dealing with small businesses that are motivated by the right things rather than perfect process and like profitability, blah, blah, blah. But instead, they're motivated by quality and by working with nature to create the best possible healthy product for human beings. It's so rare, and again, what you guys do is beyond organic. It's beyond sustainable. It's beyond. And that's the magic of your place. That's why it's so incredible and so important. It really is. And
I have to be careful with that word organic too, because
exactly, because it's a government
owned by
word,
the federal government. So no cannabis is legally allowed to be called organic. Right. But if it could be, it would be our bare minimum.
It would be very low, wouldn't it? I mean,
it would be the lowest thing that we brought into the store.
Right. Organic would be the stuff that's sort of like, well, it's only organic, right?
Right. We're looking for stewards of the soil, and we're looking for social justice warriors. We're looking for people who are trying to give back.
Yeah. What a difference. What a different point of view. Remarkable.
And it shouldn't be.
No, it should be much more obvious. I think that it's a personal thing, but everybody's on a team these days. Everybody's got their right. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. And that means that we have to fight. It doesn't mean we can have a conversation. It means we have to fight. We have to literally, practically
Brawl, yeah.
throw the gloves down, you know? And I think one of the wonderful things about cannabis, one of the reasons why I am involved in the industry, even in this weird outer ring that I'm in, like the media, is that it bridges all of those gaps, I think.
I
Right?
can agree. It's like that cute line, if we all had a bong, we'd all get along.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
I
always think
love
also,
that.
I mean, you know, I think about it in terms relative to our enemies, you know, they say that like you put 3 people together with alcohol and they start a fight. You put 3 people together with cannabis and they start a band. So I like that one too.
That's so cute.
I know, it's awfully cute. It's awfully cute.
It is.
Especially in Oregon.
It's true, you know, we're the type of people that would return the purse that was lost and have like added a flower braid to it, you know?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, now there you are. You're in Oregon. I know. There you go. That's perfect. That shows it. That proves it.
I
know.
There
That
are good
proves it.
people here.
I
And
think
we're
so. I
drawing
think
really
so.
great people.
Yeah, it's you know, it's a funny thing. Or I lived in Oregon for 6 years. I lived in Portland for 6 years, actually, and I've said ever since, if I could live anywhere in the world, if I had $1 jillion, I could live anywhere. I'd live in Portland. I would, no question about it.
Right? It's so nice.
Yeah,
I just got here. I've been out on the mountain for the last year.
Okay. Okay.
I lived on our farm out on Mount Hood.
Okay.
It's about
Wow.
40 minutes west of here for the first 4 years I worked at the shop. And it was awesome.
Yeah,
Beautiful
incredible.
out there. Yeah, really enjoyed it. And then I just recently moved to town to be a little closer to work.
Yeah. Well, commuting of any kind is backbreaking. It just it breaks your spirit after a while, you know, doing the long drive.
Yes. But, you know, I use it to call my mom.
Oh, that's okay.
So now I've
Does
got
she
a friend.
does she live out there? Does she live on the farm?
No, she lives in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
I'm from Michigan
Okay.
originally.
Nice. I'm from Connecticut originally, as a matter of fact, as it happens.
Right.
But
I've been out here for a long time though.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I tell you what, I'd love to come back. And I mentioned this too before, but not that you'd remember, but my son plays football for Portland State.
So you have so many excuses to come.
I got a
here.
lot of reasons. So now I have you to come back and see, and I have him to come back and see. And if I come and see you first, then I'll be so happy when I see him that it'll be everything.
Not that you wouldn't have been.
And not that yeah, right. I won't give him a hard time about grades. I won't give him a hard time about spending too much money. I'll be like, hey, dude.
It's all good.
That's great. And he's going to say, did you see Andi again? I said, yeah, I said Andi.
Yes.
Yeah. But he's a good, you know, he's a good sort of college boy, good straight athlete guy. So, you know, cannabis will happen later, I'm sure, with him.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have your priorities straight.
I think. Well, although, you know, they work out really, really, really hard. You know, the amount of weights they lift, the amount of sprints they do, all that sort of stuff. You know, there's the recovery aspect of it that, you know, may come into play.
Slap some bombs on it and like salves.
I know where to tell them to go.
Yeah. Well,
gotta go to Homegrown Apothecary. Hey, listen, is there anything that I forgot to ask or didn't know to ask that you would like to mention or you'd like to talk about? I'd hate to leave you thinking like, God, I wish I'd said this one thing. Is there anything else?
I don't think so. I'm just excited to be here and tell people what we're doing because I think it's really special. I
do too. Well, so just so, and we'll have, you know, your website address, of course, you know, have the URL posted on the screen, of course. But if you want to, you know, tell everybody what the web address is, where you're located, give us the whole story, give us the pitch.
Yeah. We are located at 1937 Northeast Pacific Street in Portland, Oregon. Our phone number is 503-232-1716. And our Instagram, Homegrown Apothecary PDX.
Nice.
And our website is homegrownapothecary.com.
Perfect. Nice
I'm Andi
plug.
Keller.
Nice plug. And you're Andi Keller. Fantastic. What a great conversation. I'm so glad we got a chance to finally talk.